The smell of coffee still lingered in the kitchen that morning as I rinsed a cup and set it on the counter. David leaned against the fridge, casual as ever, tossing out his weekend plans like they were nothing. He'd be at Mike's on Saturday, watching the football game with just the guys. His voice carried that relaxed certainty, like he expected me to nod and move on. For a second I did, but then something inside me stirred. I smiled and said I didn't have plans, that maybe I could come along. It was meant as lighthearted, like I was inviting myself into his world. But before I could even finish, he shut me down. Too fast, too sharp. No, it's all men. You'd feel uncomfortable, he said. The words stung more than I let on. He framed it like he was protecting me, but it felt like he was protecting something else. I hesitated, but I didn't want to seem bothered. So I softened, offered to buy him some beers for the night. That's what I did. I showed up, I supported, I made sure he was taken care of. But he waved me off, saying Mike already had everything. That was the end of the conversation, at least for him. For me, it left a whisper of doubt I couldn't quite shake, though I buried it under a smile. That night, as I folded laundry in the quiet hum of the living room, his words replayed in my head like a stuck record. It's all men. You'd feel uncomfortable. The way he cut me off so quickly, too eager to shut the door, it scratched at me. I wanted to believe him, I really did. After all, marriage was built on trust. But trust doesn't silence that little voice inside you, the one that whispers when something feels off. I told myself not to overthink. David had always been social, always had his circle of friends, and I'd never been the type of wife to cling. Still, the speed with which he dismissed me gnawed at me like an unanswered question. Why did it feel so rehearsed? Why did his eyes dart away for just a second before settling back on me? Sometimes it isn't the words that give a person away. It's the pauses between them. So I folded another shirt, stacked it neatly, and tried to shove the thought down. This was our life, after all. The routines, the small talk, the weekends planned separately and together. But deep down, beneath the rhythm of ordinary chores, there was a ripple, a crack in the pattern I couldn't ignore. And though I didn't know it yet, that tiny crack was about to split wide open. Saturday came quicker than I expected. The morning sun spilled through the curtains, and for a while, I let myself believe it was just another weekend. I moved around the house, tidying up, making lists, trying to ignore the quiet weight sitting at the back of my mind. David was in a good mood, humming as he got dressed, already texting someone before he even finished his coffee. I noticed, but I didn't ask. Not yet. When his Uber pulled up outside, he kissed me quickly, too quickly, and mumbled that he'd be late. I stood at the window, watching the car pull away, my arms wrapped around myself. Something about the way he left felt different, like he was escaping rather than just heading to a friend's. I wanted to shake it off, to trust his words, to believe the story he'd given me. But doubt lingers like smoke, it clings to you. I told myself to stay busy, to let the hours pass without dwelling. But my eyes kept drifting toward the clock, and my thoughts circled back to the same place. If it really was just a game with the guys, why did it feel so heavy in my chest? I didn't know it yet, but the answers were already on their way to me, and they'd come in a way I could never have imagined. The house was so still that evening, almost unnervingly quiet. I curled up on the couch with a blanket, flipping through channels without really watching anything. The hours ticked by, and with each one, the silence grew heavier. It was when I walked into the kitchen that I noticed it. David's insulin kit still sitting on the counter, untouched. My stomach dropped. He never left without it. Never. At first, I panicked. What if he needed it? What if something happened? I grabbed my phone and dialed his number, my fingers trembling slightly as the call rang. I expected his voice, maybe muffled music in the background, maybe even irritation for interrupting his guys' night. But what I heard instead made the air in my lungs freeze. A woman's voice, half laughing, half slurred. "Hello?" she said, dragging the word like it was part of a joke I wasn't in on. My mind spun. My voice came out sharper than I meant. "Why do you have my husband's phone?" There was a pause, then a giggle. Your husband? No, honey, you've got the wrong number. This is my phone. Every syllable hit me like static, like she was playing some cruel trick I hadn't signed up for. I gripped the phone tighter, my pulse racing as if I'd just been shoved into cold water. Really? I asked, trying to steady my voice. Because I dialed my husband David's number. I wanted her to catch the edge in my tone, the warning behind my calm. She only laughed again, tipsy and careless, like none of this mattered. Well, whoever he is, I'm not him. I'm out at Cloud with my friends. Woo! Cloud. The word slammed into me. It wasn't just a bar. It was a nightclub, one David had always dismissed as too wild for him. My free hand clutched the counter, nails pressing into the wood as if anchoring myself to reality. My mind painted the picture instantly. Neon lights, pounding bass, strangers pressed too close, and David, right in the middle of it all. My heart didn't break in that moment. No, it hardened. Every doubt I'd tried to ignore earlier that week came crashing back, louder and sharper than ever. I ended the call without another word, the sound of her giggling still ringing in my ears. That was all I needed to hear, enough to burn through any trace of denial I'd been holding on to. And just like that, the night turned into something else entirely. I set the phone down on the counter, my fingers trembling, not from fear but from a kind of cold fury I'd never felt before. The house that had felt safe just an hour earlier suddenly seemed foreign, like the walls themselves were holding secrets I hadn't been told. I paced the kitchen, my breath sharp, replaying her words again and again. Cloud. My husband. A woman's voice on his phone. The pieces clicked together too cleanly to ignore. I walked to the window, staring out into the night, my reflection looking back at me with eyes that didn't quite feel like mine. What kind of fool had I been? Offering to buy him beers, smiling as he lied straight to my face. My chest burned, but not with sadness, with clarity. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It had stumbled right into my hands, drunk and laughing, announcing itself like a bad joke. And that was when resolve took over. I wasn't going to sit at home and cry into my pillow, waiting for him to stumble back with another excuse. If Cloud was where the answers lived, then that was where I'd go. My keys were on the table. My coat hung by the door. The night outside felt darker than usual, but I wasn't afraid of the dark anymore. I was ready to face what waited for me. The bass hit me before I even stepped inside. Outside the club, the air vibrated with sound, and the neon glow painted everything in harsh, pulsing colors. My hands tightened on the steering wheel for a moment before I finally let go and walked toward the entrance. People laughed, shouted, stumbled past me, smelling of alcohol and perfume. It was chaos, and yet every step I took was steady, deliberate. Inside, the heat wrapped around me instantly, bodies pressed together, lights slicing through the dark in violent flashes. I scanned the crowd, my eyes adjusting to the haze, every nerve in me braced for impact. And then I saw him. David, laughing, drunk, arms slung around two women like he was the star of his own sordid little show. My stomach clenched, but my face stayed still. He kissed one of them, right there, in the open, no shame, no hesitation. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It was like watching a stranger wearing my husband's skin. The sound of people cheering, glasses clinking, music pounding. It all faded to a dull roar behind the thud of my own heart. I should have looked away, but I didn't. I wanted to see. I needed to see. I slipped my phone from my bag, my fingers steady now, fueled by a calm I didn't expect. If he thought this night would vanish into shadows, he was wrong. I pressed record, framing him in the lens as he swayed and stumbled, lips on another woman's neck, drink spilling from his glass. The camera captured what my heart had already known. Proof. Raw, undeniable, time-stamped proof. I held the phone low, the glow of the screen hidden as I filmed. My breath slowed, almost detached like I was watching someone else's life unravel. But no, this was mine. This was my marriage, my trust, my years invested, all tossed into a pile with cheap perfume and neon lights. For a moment, grief stabbed at me, but sharper still was the surge of control that replaced it, With every second of footage, I felt the shift inside me. I wasn't just the wife standing in the shadows anymore. I was the witness, the archivist, the one holding the truth in my hands. And as he laughed louder, pulling both women tighter to him, I made a silent promise. This wouldn't end here, in a crowded club. No, this was just the beginning. I stopped recording and slipped the phone back into my bag, the weight of it heavier now, like it carried not just evidence but a turning point. For a moment, I just stood there, hidden in the blur of strangers, letting the sight of him burn into me. David, the man who swore loyalty, who kissed me goodbye hours earlier, now parading himself like fidelity was beneath him. My jaw tightened, but my eyes stayed dry. Turning toward the door, I moved through the crowd as if the music no longer touched me. The bass rattled the floor, but it was distant, meaningless. Every step I took away from him felt like reclaiming a piece of myself he'd tried to diminish. I didn't need a scene. I didn't need to scream or confront him under the neon lights. That would have been for him. This was for me. When the cool night air hit my face outside, I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. My hands were no longer trembling. They were firm, sure, ready. The plan hadn't fully formed yet, but the seed had been planted. And as I slid behind the wheel of my car, one thought pulsed louder than the music I'd left behind. He had no idea what was coming next. The clock glowed past 3 a.m. when I finally heard the front door creak open. I sat in the living room, lights low, the phone resting in my hand like a weapon I didn't have to raise yet. His footsteps stumbled across the floor, uneven, clumsy, and then he appeared, reeking of alcohol, his shirt half untucked, his eyes glassy. He froze when he saw me sitting there, calm and waiting. "Babe," he slurred, rubbing a hand across his face. "I told you I'd be late. The game ran long." His voice cracked halfway through, but he tried to play it off with a shrug. I tilted my head, studying him the way you study a liar who doesn't even realize the mask is slipping. My silence stretched, and I saw the flicker of unease cross his face. He knew something was wrong. I let the pause hang before answering, my tone sharp but steady. "Oh? Was the game at Mike's? Or at Cloud?" His whole body stiffened, shoulders locking like I'd just called his bluff at the poker table. His eyes darted to the floor, then back to me, scrambling for words. And for the first time that night, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. His mouth opened, but nothing came out at first. Just a stammer, a half-breath, a lie trying to form. What are you talking about?" he finally managed, the words shaky, unconvincing. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Instead, I pressed play on my phone, the screen glowing between us, and suddenly the room filled with the sound of pounding bass and his own laughter. His laughter with her. The video showed him on the dance floor, arms around strangers, lips where they didn't belong, his pride dissolving with every frame. I watched his face as he watched himself, the denial draining out of him, replaced by panic. He reached toward me, desperate to grab the phone, but I pulled it back, holding it like a shield. "I'm talking about this," I said, my voice low, deliberate. His excuses tumbled out in a rush, sloppy and hollow. "It was just a mistake. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything," he pleaded, his words bouncing against the walls of a house that had heard better promises before. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms, studying him like he was a stranger. "Oh, it meant everything," I told him. At least it did to me. And for once, he had no script left to read from. He stood there, swaying slightly, his hands open in surrender, eyes wet with a mix of fear and desperation. "Please," he whispered, voice cracking now that the bravado was gone. "It was nothing, I swear. I can fix this. Don't throw us away over one stupid night." His words tried to stitch themselves into something resembling love, but to me they sounded like scraps, torn fabric that could never be sewn back together. I studied him in silence, the way you look at a painting you've seen your whole life, only to notice it was a forgery all along. Every memory, every promise, every kiss replayed in my head, now colored by the sight of him under flashing neon lights with strangers. He wanted forgiveness, but what he really wanted was escape. Escape from consequences. Escape from the truth. I leaned forward, my voice steady, each word deliberate. You already threw us away the moment you chose them over me. His shoulders collapsed, the fight draining from him as if he finally understood there was no loophole, no excuse big enough to cover this wound. And though he didn't know it yet, this confrontation was just the opening act. The real reckoning was still to come. The next morning, while David slept off his shame in the bedroom, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and phone laid out like weapons of choice. The video I'd filmed at Cloud glowed on the screen, raw and damning. I replayed it, not because I needed to convince myself, but because I was planning how to turn it into something sharper, something that would cut where it hurt the most. His pride, his career. David had bragged for weeks about that promotion at work, how his boss trusted him, how he was management material. He wore that ambition like armor, flaunting it in every conversation. And I knew, right then, that was where I'd strike. Not with screaming or crying, not with a public fight he could twist into a story later. No, my revenge would be quiet, calculated, and impossible to undo. I edited the footage carefully, trimming away the noise until only the truth remained. Him kissing strangers, stumbling drunk, drowning in a mess of his own making. I added timestamps, every detail sharp enough to make denial impossible. And when the video was finished, I didn't hesitate. I drafted the email, attached the file, and typed a subject line that would scorch his image in seconds. This is how your future manager spends his weekends. By Monday morning, the email had already detonated. I didn't need confirmation, but it came anyway in the form of chaos echoing through his phone. Frantic calls, buzzing messages, his boss's name flashing more than once. When David stormed through the door that evening, his face was red, his hands shaking, his voice already raised. Julia, you destroyed me. My boss saw the video. The promotion's gone. Everyone at work thinks I'm a joke. I sat at the table, calm, sipping my tea as though he were telling me the weather. I met his rage with silence first, letting it hang in the air until he ran out of words. Then I said evenly, "Destroyed you? No. I just showed them the man you really are. You did the rest." His mouth opened and closed, searching for something to throw back, but nothing came. He knew it too. "Please," he finally begged, his voice trembling now, stripped of arrogance. "I can fix this. Don't throw us away." His eyes glistened, but the tears weren't for me. They were for him, for the life slipping through his fingers. And for the first time in years, I felt no obligation to soften, to soothe, to rescue him from his own downfall. He had written this ending all by himself. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out the envelope I'd prepared days earlier, even before Cloud had confirmed my suspicions. Divorce papers, eviction notice, every page signed, every line airtight. I slid it across the table with the same calm I'd shown all day. "You already threw us away," I told him. "Now you get to live with the consequences." His face drained of color as his eyes scanned the documents. He stammered something, my name, a plea, an unfinished sentence that dissolved into the heavy silence between us. But I didn't flinch, I didn't shout, I didn't cry. I only lifted my teacup again, letting the steam rise between us like a curtain. He had wrecked his career, his marriage, his reputation, and I wasn't going to pick up a single piece. That was his job now, and he'd have to do it alone. Finally, I stood, my voice steady as I gave him the last words he'd hear from me inside that home. "Pack your things. My life is moving forward. Yours just stalled." I opened the door and waited. Slowly, with shaking hands, he gathered himself and stepped out into the hallway. The sound of the door clicking shut behind him wasn't an ending. It was my beginning.